Here. We could all please stand for the pledge. Ray Rep Search, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could all remain standing. Trustee Taglia, could you please lead us in a prayer?
Certainly. Our Heavenly Father, will thou be pleased to grant that this meeting, thus begun in order, be conducted in peace and closed in harmony. Amen.
We go to item 3, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia,
I'll move to approve the agenda.
can I have a second?
Mr. President.
Trustee Case,
Second.
questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Yes, and I just received a text that Trustee Davis is sitting at home sick with the flu. Sorry.
Let him stay there.
Item 4 is presentation of fiscal year 2012-13 annual GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award.
Here I am.
Here we go, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm pleased to announce that the village has received the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the fiscal year 2013 budget, and this is our 20th consecutive year that we've received this award. The budget process starts in December and is finalized by the end of April with the village board's approval. Many hours are committed to accomplishing the final product, and it is only done with the cooperation and input of staff, department heads, the village manager, and of course the Board of Trustees. It is accomplished also because of the commitment of Vitas as village treasurer and our financial budget analyst, Julie Settles, who has a difficult task of working her magic in producing the multiple revisions as well as the final printed document. That said, I have the award. President Cullerton.
Awesome.
Do you like it? No?
You know what? I'm only here
I'm
for
gonna
a
put
short
it-
time. I
put it
would
in
like
the
to
board.
keep it in either the
Oh,
boardroom
it
on
will
our
be.
trophy case back there.
Yes.
Or we can keep it down in the manager's office, or because you and your team do such a good job, your office would be
I think
great
we'll
as
put
well.
it in with all the other ones.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And that, how many years in a row have we got?
20th.
20th?
Yes.
All right, rather impressive. Any comments on it? No, I'm not going to question her. I think she's done a tremendous job, year in and year out. 20 years in a row for an award. Come on.
I haven't been here that long.
All right, with that, we will go. Do you have a proclamation? As I'm looking through it here. I don't know where it is. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, item 5, proclamation designated January as Kiwanis, as Mr. Manager Keener says. I say Kiwanis. Eliminate Project Month in Villa Park. Proclamation designated January as Kiwanis Eliminate Project in Villa Park. Whereas the Kiwanis Club of Villa Park is joining with over 800,000 Kiwanis members across the globe to raise $110 million in the next 4 years for Kiwanis International's Project for Children, the Eliminate Project. And whereas the Eliminate Project is to eliminate maternal neonatal tetanus worldwide and will protect millions of women and their future babies who are at risk for MNT. And whereas each day approximately 160 babies die from tetanus, a very painful disease that causes excruciating convulsions, terrible pain, and even prevents mothers from touching their babies. And whereas tetanus is a highly preventable disease with a series of 3 vaccine doses to women of childbearing age, costing approximately $1.80. And whereas not only will the Eliminate Project protect women and babies from tetanus, the project will also create a path for other services such as health, education, clean water, nutrition, and other vaccines. And whereas Kiwanis' mission is to change the world one community and one child at a time by making our world a healthier place to grow and live, therefore I, Thomas Cullerton, President of the Village of Villa Park, and on behalf of its residents, declare January the Kiwanis Club of Villa Park the Eliminate Project Month and encourage all citizens to recognize and support this very humanitarian endeavor. And we do have members of the Kiwanis Club here this evening. If they would like to come forward, talk about this venture, and also what the plans are for donations, how we're going to do things.
Outstanding.
Dan, I'll give it to you.
President Cullerton, thank you very much, and obviously trustees, thank you very much for proclaiming this month as the Eliminate Project Month here in Villa Park. 1 year ago, we were here on behalf of the Kiwanis Club and the Kiwanis International to speak to you about the Eliminate Project and our goal as a community in Villa Park to raise $40,000 toward this $110 million goal. We're happy to report that after 1 year of donations and fundraisers, we've raised over $11,000 toward that $40,000 goal. So we're well on our way. That's a 5-year plan, by the way, to raise the $40,000. So obviously proclaiming the month as Eliminate Month is fantastic in terms of recognition. We'd like to thank our residents who have already participated throughout this past year in donating funds toward this project. We do have a few fundraisers this month that we are dedicating. The first is at Dominic's Pizza, which you can't go wrong, obviously, in St. Charles Road and having a nice meal out. But on January 23rd, don't cook. Go ahead and eat out at Dominic's. They will be donating either 10 or 20% of the proceeds from their sales that evening, depending upon what you order, toward the Eliminate Project in Kiwanis Club of Villa Park. We're very, very excited about that. In addition, our Key Club at Willowbrook High School is sponsoring our annual Battle of the Bands. All the proceeds on the January 29th event will be completely dedicated to the Eliminate Project. So our goal at the end of this month is continue to raise funds toward that overall $40,000, and as was read in the proclamation, to help to eradicate maternal neonatal tetanus from the world. So thank you so much for obviously proclaiming this month as the Eliminate Month in Villa Park. Right?
So on behalf of the Villa Park unit of the Elmhurst Hospital Guild, our board members, instead of having grab bag gifts this year, we decided to make donations instead. So the donations are being split between two organizations, one that helps the children and one that helps the mothers. So on behalf of the Guild, I wanted to present this check for $50 to the Eliminate Project.
Great.
To start us on our way for this year.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks. This check, by the way, just represented that we just saved 27 lives. So I think that, just to quantify that, $1.80 is what will save the life of a child by providing the vaccine that's necessary to their mother. So that's why we asked for the $1.80 donation from every resident. That's where we came up with the $40,000 goal for all of Villa Park. So it's a tremendous contributions like these that help us toward those goals. So thanks again. As we continue this effort, we'll continue to update you because it's been a great partnership. And feel free to ask us any questions along the way, or if you have suggestions on how to further this project, we're always all ears.
Well, I have questions now. Who do you have with you, Dan?
Thank you very much. I'm gonna let them all. They pretend like they don't want to be up here, right? So I'm gonna ask them to please introduce themselves.
Okay.
So, right? Thanks. I think you know this guy.
Fire Chief Ron Rakosnik.
Irene Schaefer, I'm the treasurer.
Ray Repsearch, secretary.
Carl Chaconis, member of the club.
Greg Gola, Parks and Recreation Director.
And we have a couple other members that are up with you, by the way.
Yes,
as
we
well.
do.
So,
Fantastic. And then, so you have the Dominic's one coming up. Are there cans anywhere around? I mean, do we have those out?
we have donation cans throughout the community at different locations. You
Okay.
can see them, at businesses that you frequent. We collect those on a weekly basis, and those are nice in terms of a regular revenue generator. As Irene said, she's the treasurer, so she keeps all the books. We have it down to the dollar and the cents as to how much we've collected up to this point because of all those great donations. So
Excellent.
Great.
Well, thank you. Good
Thank
luck
you
on
so
the
much.
venture.
Thank you.
Dan.
Thanks. Great. Good check, huh?
Item 6, discussion regarding electric sign. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Beginning in 2009, the Village of Villa Park staff began consideration of potential amendments to the sign code relative to electronic signs. Significant research and discussion has ensued since that time. The proposed text amendment changes as it relates to electronic signs was supported by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the Transportation and Safety Commission and the Economic Development Commission. The proposed language would perpetuate the use of electronic signs, but with more regulation and specific prohibitions along certain corridors. The prohibition on movement of any kind, other than the change from one static message to the next, remains. And Your Honor, this evening we have Director Grill to kind of explain the recommendation.
Thank you. Back in 2009, the Planning and Zoning Commission started public hearings on proposed changes to the sign code as it related to electronic signs. Since that time, there have been 8 public hearings to discuss this particular issue. A formal recommendation was presented to the village board last year. It was continued. I reviewed all of the data that went into the proposal. I found the data to be very well done, accurate, reasonable. I went back to the Planning and Zoning Commission last month just to review those recommendations with them. They all still supported those recommendations. So this evening, we're seeking direction on which amendments, if any, this board wishes to take as it relates to electronic signs. Basically, there are specific recommendations that were made that would place a time limit on how long a static message could stay up. The recommendation, right now there is no specific time limit on how long those messages can stay up. The specific recommendation that was made by the P&Z was 3 seconds. The second was to prohibit 4 specific areas where we didn't want to encourage any more electronic signs, and that included the train station area, the St. Charles Road corridor, the Ardmore and Park area, and then the South Villa business district. Currently, there is no regulation on how long these signs can be on. In essence, if you wanted to run your sign 24 hours a day, you could do that. What this proposal called for is that any business that had an electronic sign that was within 100 feet of a residential zoning district would have to turn off their sign at 11 p.m. and could not turn it on prior to 7 a.m. unless that business was engaged in the operation of regular business during those hours, in which case they could have their sign on during their normal business hours. The other thing that our code right now does not address is the brightness of the signs. And the recommendation being made would require that all signs be equipped with automatic dimming devices, sunscreens, or operate in a manner that is appropriate for ambient light levels and no external illumination. In addition, the proposal would allow background colors or displays to change only when the message changes. Right now, you can have an electronic sign that overhangs the public right-of-way. The specific recommendation being made would prohibit the overhanging of any of those signs from a public right-of-way. In certain instances, we also allow roof signs, and this proposal would specifically prohibit roof signs as it relates to electronic signs. And the proposal before you this evening also would give sign owners 60 days to comply with the proposed guidelines that are being made. One of the things that I noticed in my research that was not included in any of the proposals was a specific limitation on the amount of signage, of electronic signage for the overall signage that would be allowed. Right now, currently, if you're permitted 100 square feet of signage, you could have a 100 square foot electronic sign up there. I think that a more appropriate amount would be 50% of your allowable sign area. In fact, probably 90% of our current electronic signs in town currently have about 50% or less of their current electronic sign of their total sign area. And then the last issue that came up is I noticed that in our sign code It is mum as it relates to public or government signs. A lot of communities, just for the sake of ease and not having to go before a public hearing process in front of the P&Z and then coming back to the village board, is a proposal that the government signs be allowed in any zoning district on publicly owned land, and that sign be of any size, height, or location. So with that, I'd like the board to, if you have any questions concerning this, and if it's something that you want to do, staff would prepare the necessary ordinance and come back to the village board for consideration.
All right, since we're at committee of the whole first, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Anyone from the board? I have a question, Patrick.
Sure.
Do all of our this was it's been an ongoing issue for a very long time. Have we contacted essentially the sign owners and let them know we're revisiting and coming back to this?
No.
Okay, I would make the recommendation before we come back with anything to the board, if the board so chooses to relook at the issue, you let them all know. I mean, there was a heavily vested interest by a lot of members of our community who own businesses and live in this town, who came to all those P&Z meetings, came to all those different outreach points, talked to many of us, emails, phone calls, and we're very interested in the entire process. So definitely when this, if the board recommends that they'd like to see something come up, I would definitely, so as not to hear from them after the fact, make sure that they're aware that this will be coming back up if the board so chooses to put it back up and ask you to go forward with it. Any questions for the board? Trustee Case?
Yeah, what I'm seeing is some of these people that are putting up these electronic signs are approving their business area with the signs. I'd like to know what we're going to do with the businesses that got signs that are broken and everything else. Are we going to respond to them in any way, or?
Well, if you have a broken sign, then your sign is in violation of our property maintenance code, and you'd be cited for non-maintenance of required building components.
Okay, because these electronic signs look better than some of the signs that I won't mention North Park Mall at all. But
Thankfully, you didn't mention it.
It's discouraging to the businesses, I feel. I mean, I think we should look at that first. I mean,
well, effective code enforcement is an ongoing issue, and this goes right along with it. But technology has been such that there's just been a huge propagation of these types of signs. And another thing that staff did, and it was included in your packet, is looked at other surrounding communities, because we don't want to place our existing businesses at a competitive disadvantage as it relates to other communities surrounding us. So we tried as much as possible to try to blend this proposal such that you really couldn't tell whether or not you were in Villa Park, Elmhurst, Lombard, Addison. It's fairly consistent.
When this comes through, how do you anticipate, if the board says to go through, how do you anticipate coming back to us? At committee of the whole again, or going straight to agenda, taking suggestions, going with what we have in front of us?
Well, it's my suggestion is that we take what we have in front of us, and if that's what you're willing to consider, I will contact all of the business owners and let them know the outline of the proposed changes that would be made and when it would be up at the village board for consideration.
Okay. Trustee Bolthus?
Up till now, we've sort of been hoping that the businesses in town police themselves real well with the signs that they do put up, and we've had examples recently where that really isn't the case. So we do need something in an ordinance on how these signs have to function. And we've got hundreds of hours that have been spent on it already by different commissions and the board up here. And I agree with Senator Kellerton that we've never had a senator lead our board meetings before, by the way. So it's going to go down in history. So I would recommend that we do contact the businessmen, but to do that so there can be talking points, we really need to have a document of what we're actually looking at.
I would agree that we need a document of what we're looking at, and I would suggest having a meeting prior to bringing it to a board meeting. This is for those of us who've sat through it. It's not a short meeting when it occurs, and there's a lot of back and forth over what works for businesses and what doesn't work, and why 1 second here could mean the difference on cost and message and everything else. And I would say if the board wants to go forward with this, then my suggestion would be to have at least one meeting, possibly in that committee of whole meeting room with whoever wants to come. But make sure the businesses that all have them know that the meeting's going to occur, and we have a time frame for them to come in and discuss what we're going to finally be discussing and proposing. Because you're going to see, welcome aboard, but you're going to see a year ago this issue wasn't taken lightly. Trustee Aiello brought forward a motion, brought his own ordinance trying to tweak. We tried to blend as many different options as we could. And it still got to be to where it was a pretty big impasse. So rather than be a whole meeting up here, I would suggest, I'd like to see it move forward, but let's have that meeting be an open meeting in the committee of the whole. Because once you give people this, once you give the sign owners this and business owners this, they're going to want to add or possibly take away and have their opinions heard. And you could be in for a very long night if you do it here during just a general meeting.
Okay.
Trustee Bolthus?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. What you have here is probably what you should come back with. In talking to letting the businessmen know, let them come talk to us is a good idea. I'm not 100% sure we're going to hear anything different than we've already heard, but it never hurts to let them say their piece again. So I don't know if President Kellerton's saying that we're going to have that meeting with the businessmen
I would say
in a COW, or?
I would say we can do it just an open public meeting where the board is here. And we can either do it in here or in committee of the whole room.
We probably need this size.
I would say, but we should definitely have where the board is present, where the entire board is present, prior to it coming back onto the agenda, because you're going to want to hear all of it, and you're going to want, and we should truthfully talk to some of the members of P&Z to come out as well, if they would, if they could help us. So I'll leave it up to the manager and you, Patrick, to schedule all that. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Perfect. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Everybody good with that thought? Go through with a separate meeting?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Item 7, consider an ordinance providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of issuing $22,500,000 general obligation bonds to the voters of the village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, at the consolidated election to be held on April 9th, 2013. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The village is proposing that a bond referendum be placed on the April 9th, 2013 ballot for an expenditure of the amount of not to exceed $22,500,000 for the purpose of paying costs of street and storm sewer and related improvements throughout the village and expenses incidental to the project. Before the board can construct the project and borrow money and issue bonds for such purpose, a proposition therefore must be submitted to the voters of the village and be approved by a majority of the voters. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions or comment from the public?
Yes, it's a change.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Questions or comments from the board? This was asked by Trustee Aiello. Trustee Aiello and myself went and chatted with Ice Miller. Ice Miller is here for questions or comments. You know, we've tried referendums before. Trust me, I've knocked a lot of doors in the past year, and people in this town are still clamoring for roads to be fixed. People in this town still want a solution to getting these roads fixed. We've had multiple meetings with Michigan Avenue, Van Buren, North and South Michigan Avenue, actually, Wisconsin, Kenilworth. We've had, this has been a constant throughout my 4 years as a trustee, now my 4 years as a president. And truthfully, with the amount that needs to be done, I would imagine Vetus would probably be a good person to ask. Vetus, how did we get to this number of 22.5? He wasn't expecting it, was he?
Well, the last number I believe was 25 or 27.5. So
Right.
we started from the old list, modified it, and took off what's been done and tweaked it a little bit. It's not a final list, but it's working off the original list of 27.5 from
And over-
2008.
And had we actually passed that referendum 4 years ago, we would have been pretty close to being done, correct?
It would have taken a good 5 years, so we would have been
About a little more
about
than
year
halfway.
4 or year 5.
Okay, so we'd be in year 4. And what was the goal of that referendum? Every
27.
street in Villa Park being over an 80% grade, correct?
That's correct.
So had we passed it 4 years ago, folks, we could have, we right now have about a year and a half left, and every street in Villa Park would have been at an 80% grade. Or we'd have 2 years left, right about there. Any other questions or comment? Any questions or comments again from the public? Come on up, just come to the podium. All right, questions from the board? Trustee Bolthus?
You know, we all agree that there's a need to get the roads fixed. Everybody up here has talked to residents who live on a bad street and want to know when it's going to get done. And so it is an issue that we have to address, but we've tried 2 different times now to have a bond issue to get this passed, and it failed. Now we have, 2 months before the next election, if we do put it on an agenda, on the ballot. But we've tried it twice in a quick method, just doing it, not talking, having meetings ourselves. What are we going to do different this time that will give us a different results? How are we going to educate the public? What's the plan? We got some guys here that know how to do this. Am I correct?
Right.
Can we have a little idea? What do you think about the time frame that we're working with? Is it a wise choice, or is it something that maybe we should wait a little bit if we want an affirmative vote from the residents?
Okay. My name is Bill Hofer. I'm with George K. Bauman Company. We were here about, it was a little over a year ago. It was, I believe it was like the fall of 2011. And we're in the banking side. The Election Services Group, we had Ann Knock made a presentation that evening discussing all the steps. And all I happen to have one from, which is somewhat of a compressed that we looked at for a high school. It would be a compressed time frame. The normal time frame that they work with is somewhere between 12 to 18 months that they work, but it's a very detailed, I think as she presented to you all, that you really have to engage the community. Something that she's very adverse to, the Election Services Group is adverse to, is the low-key approach, because they find that usually it's very, it's not very successful. But given that, you can go out and approach something like this, and you have about 2 months, 2.5 months to do this, but it would be extremely compressed, and it would be something that would take a lot of energy of the people. They work through the committee, and you'd have a campaign committee. I don't know if you've formulated or thought about a campaign committee, but essentially the village, once they adopt it, the village cannot advocate for the project at all. It has to come from the committee. And then what they would do and where they would work with the committee is in formulating different promotional pieces, things that would work. Like, you all been through campaigns, so you know the copy and the different ideas that you have to come up with. That's what they do. But again, it's reaching the community and getting that message to them in a tight time frame. You know the community better than we would know it. Part of what they do in the normal context of what they perform is they do a mail survey. The mail survey, then they follow up with a phone survey. It's very detailed, it's very scientific. They get feedback through those surveys where they're able to gauge the level of support and the threshold of support in the community at different levels. One of the key things that most communities want to know is what's homeowner impact. Well, that's a factor of how you structure the bond issue. And you have up to 40 years to structure a bond issue on a referendum for a municipality. We're not saying 40 years, that you would use 40 years. The second factor is you have existing debt that the homeowners already are paying. You structure the new debt. Usually you try to temper and minimize the impact to the greatest extent possible to the homeowners. The other aspect is the need. That's a major issue. People go in to vote. It's the impact to them, but at the same time, they support things that will benefit them in terms of the streets are so bad, they want it improved, pay for it. There's the pay-as-you-go method, and they've done campaigns for this very issue. And one of the things that I mentioned to Rich was they had a cone. They showed cones, and they said, you can have cones for the next 7 years because as a pay-as-you-go, that's how long it'll take if you don't want to bond it. Or we can get the cones, and it will be done in about a year if we do the bond issue. So it was, here's your choice. Do you want to be driving through cones or for the next 7 years? Because that's how long it'll take on a pay-as-you-go basis. And they got the support, and the referendum passed. So there's so many aspects of it. I mean, this is just something that, and I know they had presented this to you at the last meeting, but there's different things you do prior to the adoption and things that you do after it. But a lot of it revolves around knowing what the community, how the community feels about it, and that support. So,
well, my concern, Mr. President, is the fact that, as we just heard, a committee, a survey, mail survey, a phone survey, and then using that information to put out your educational materials, that all takes time.
Correct.
And compressing all that into a 2 month, 2.5 months, starting from today, is a huge undertaking. And I just hate to do it and then have it not work, not be able to gauge the input, gauge the feeling of the community about how they feel about it. I've looked through the past bond issues and how the votes came in and the areas that the votes came in. Our biggest challenge is that the people who want the street repair are the ones who are on the bad streets.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who are on the good streets, they really don't vote in favor of it. Now, it's a whole educational process to let everybody in the community know how important it is to the community as a whole, and we're all stakeholders in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes time to get that message out.
Right.
And I'm just kind of concerned that if we do this quickly without an actual plan, a game plan, and sufficient time to educate all the voters in town, we're just setting ourselves up for another failure. And then we're still 2 years behind then starting it, and we're still 2 years behind before the next election comes.
Well, our election services group would be prepared to assist you in every way possible.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing you have are the low interest rates. That's probably your number one key benefit right now is that and coupled with that is the bids you would expect would be very competitive in this market from contractors on something like this. They had 22, I believe it was 22 issues this past November. They passed 20 of 22, and it was a little over $1.5 billion. But again, that's the working through
The process.
They're very thorough, and I know that was part of what Ann's presentation was last time, is they're extremely thorough and detailed about it. But it's not to say that they have not been successful with short campaigns. And we had a conversation today with them about that, and it was, look, we'll gear up, we'll do everything we can, and we'll see. I don't know, the level, how much all the different steps they have that you would be willing or want to involve them on, meaning like the surveys and all the different things. So
These most recent issues, was this during the presidential election?
yes.
Any other questions from the board?
President Culleton?
Trustee Taglia?
What would the costs be involved for the village to work with your firm to try to get this pushed like in the short compressed period of time?
Underwriting side, normally we're 1% on an underwriting. For all the campaign, we don't charge anything on that. We just look to underwrite the bonds. That's part of what we offer. And the firm created the Election Services Group. It was 18 or 19 years ago. They do not charge for it. If the only thing that the village would pay, or you have to pay for mailings, if you elected to do a survey, that's done outside. They put together the survey, they formulate all the questions, but the actual, like a phone survey, that's done by an outside firm, and so it's whatever that outside firm charges for the survey, and that depends on how many questions, and normally it's 400 people that they contact to have it statistically valuable or statistically accurate. Then postage and anything in terms of printing. Yeah, printing and postage, because that's all done outside of the firm. But they would formulate all the copy. They put all that
So we'd
together.
have to get quotes on the cost from an outside vendor to do these services.
For the printing and that, if you have somebody who does printing and that, our election group would create the verbiage, the ads, the what have you. They put that all together, yard signs, they do that. But as far as paying for that, that's all done by somebody else.
Thank you.
Truthfully, the village couldn't pay for it. 'Cause
You couldn't pay for it. It'd have to be the committee. You have to formulate a committee to do that.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Trustee Bolfus in terms of the timeline. I think, we all up here care about our roads and the infrastructure, but at the end of the day, in order to do it right, we need to have the time to do it right. In the past, I think personally, we failed because we didn't put in the time, the energy to put together a sound plan, talk to the residents, do the surveys, do the sign campaigns and other community education campaigns that would be necessary for something of this magnitude. I mean, we're talking about $23 million.
Right.
It's a lot of money. And I think in order to do it right, we need to do it right. So I would love to hear from the residents, but I don't know if we can get a good sampling within 2 months before this shows up on the ballot. We really need to clue the residents in on this, and there's also a trust factor involved too. It takes a lot of trust. So
I know that's one of the
Yes.
That's one of the things that they do in their presentations. They raise the issue of trust. That's another factor. So
that's how I feel.
Case.
What's your point of view? Where do you feel we stand? Honestly.
I think, well,
Hey,
no.
Said so
you work
in the
for free.
report.
Yeah,
Nobody.
I've been with them. Seeing them work on campaigns. They just successfully passed 3 issues for us in Illinois. 3 different referendums in Illinois. They tend to work better with more planning. It's more systematic, it's very detailed, and they have a much better or much more accurate feel for where things will be at the end of the day. They can do, but I said they can do it compressed, and they've been successful on some compressed campaigns.
I think there's enough deal with people in this town, but anybody got any other options?
What's the interest rate going to be on this one? What's the range?
Actually, he has some numbers on them, just preliminary.
A
I think
range.
this was
A range. I'm not going to hold it to a number.
Yeah.
I understand that market can change.
Just looking at a 25-year schedule on a level debt structure, the true interest cost would be about 3.63%.
So
It's
it'd be
25
less than
years.
half of what was proposed for last time we proposed it,
Rates are-
as far as the rate goes. Not the repayment rate, but the
Rates
rate.
in November hit all-time low.
Oh, you know what? Can you come up to the mic so we can hear you? Oh, sure. No worries.
As I was saying, on a 20, by the way, I'm Tom Reedy with George K. Bauman and Company as well.
Thank you.
On a 25-year level debt structure, our estimated interest rate in today's market would be about 3.63%. That would be the true interest cost. As I was saying, in November, we did hit all-time lows in the municipal market as far as interest rates are concerned. So it is a very good time to borrow money. I think everyone knows that home loan rates are very low. Treasury rates are very low, as well as the municipal market. It has come up slightly in the last month or month and a half, but it's still, interest rates are still very, very attractive.
And Vetus, how are prices for road work? Low? I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get to the levels they were at 2009 and 2010, but how are they?
Well, they've crept back up primarily because fuel costs have come up quite a bit in the last few years. So they're higher than they were in 2008 and 9, obviously. And right now, fuel costs seem to be the driving force.
Are they still lower than they were in 4 and 5?
Slightly higher. It hasn't been a huge change.
Costs of roads are higher now than they were in 2004 and 2005 and 6 when the market was booming?
Sure.
Okay.
They're slightly higher because of fuel costs.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia?
as far as the way the debt's structured, the homeowners in town primarily shoulder the burden of the repayment of the bonds. Is that true?
If it's a general obligation and you're paying it from the property tax, yes.
So the property owners will be the ones paying back the taxes. Is there another way to structure this type of a debt? Are there any
There's-
other options?
You can
besides
look at other
property taxes?
revenue sources such as motor fuel tax, and you can dedicate motor fuel tax to it. You can, again, we have not had discussions with the village administration regarding all the different options. The structure you could go out 40 years. You could have interest only, given what your existing debt is, and have it.
My concern is the willingness of homeowners to shoulder more taxes, seeing that, everyone just got a nice pay cut to start the new year.
Right.
And I think right now there's probably a bad taste in everybody's mouth as far as taxes go. And the last thing I'd like to see is another referendum fail. So if there was other options we could look at besides just having homeowners shoulder the entire burden, we said maybe motor fuel taxes or other areas.
If you structure
real quick, as a non-home rule community, you still you'd have to pass, and that would be straight up tax increase on the ballot. It would say tax increase, whether it be a sales tax, motor fuel tax.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we're as a non-home rule community, you could essentially you can increase property taxes and correct me if I'm wrong. You could increase property taxes and sales tax and everything else at whatever rate you wanted. But due to being a non-home rule community, you are essentially, you have parameters that you can work in, and you can't raise your retail or motor fuel tax without going to a referendum.
So we'd have to put a like question on a referendum with this if we wanted an alternative structure to pay back the debt.
Right.
I see.
You have a 2009 A and B issue that you adopt a resolution each year to abate the levy.
Yes.
There's a levy behind that, but you adopt and you abate. You could do the same thing with a general obligation issue if you had another revenue source to pay the debt service.
The other thing you have to remember is with how the question would be proposed, if we're going off of prior, you would actually be able to specify that it's paying the cost of street and storm sewer. If you recall, because of what the governor signed into law 3 years ago, not only do you have to put storm and sewer on there, you actually have to put that it could possibly include municipal services, could possibly include
Swimming pools?
It could possibly include, well, it could possibly include other projects, because the governor allowed people until 2014, was it 14 or 13, where you could use retail sales tax that were dedicated for streets to other budgetary issues. Whereas this general obligation bond, it would say for the purpose of paying costs of street and storm sewer related improvements throughout the village, they could only be utilized for street and storm sewer related improvements throughout the village. And I think when the sales tax one went through, because of the language the governor, because of sort of the leeway the governor gave many municipalities, we had to add all that other language in there. So people, when they got into the polls, said, well, wait, this is going for storm. How come they say buildings can be used? How come they say general fund can be used? How come they say it can be put into different revenue sources or revenue streams within the village? And I know for sales tax, that would still be true for at least another year on any referendum question brought up.
Okay.
If I'm wrong.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, and I think that expires possibly this year. Correct? Yes, I'm over. Don't worry about it.
Mr. President, is my concern would be that I think the residents deserve some type of dialogue, some type of notification, maybe some input, just so they're aware that there's a possible pending referendum and what the ramifications are. I think that would be something I think is important that we do. That's it.
What's the penalty if we don't get the referendum passed?
Nothing. There's no penalty to you.
I mean, but then we gotta wait another year, or
No.
so what's the difference then?
Just another negative that you've lost it again.
It's just another loss. It's
Right.
another
We've been working on signs since 2009. What's the difference?
2008. We've been working on signs since
I lost the
2008.
year. I was trying to give the town a little credit.
2008, we've been working on signs.
If you asked your wife to marry you and she said no, would you ask her again?
Absolutely.
President Cullerton?
Well, Trustee Bullwinkle?
If I could ask Director Lump, our finance director, to kind of explain our bond obligation. You had submitted a memo to the board.
Right.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Well, currently, we have, I think it's 30, we're allowed 57 million, and we have currently almost 18 million. So we have 35 million that we're allowed.
Okay.
That's based on a current EAV.
Right.
The EAV goes down,
Right.
that number drops as well.
Right.
The EAV goes up?
That number goes up.
Thank you.
So,
Let's hope it goes up.
so the debt margin, according to your memo, is $35,697,000
Right.
and some change.
That's our maximum.
Maximum. So of which 27.5 or thereabouts would be what this bond referendum would be.
It was changed to 22.
22. So
Yeah, once the
even
numbers
at
came in.
22, that would give us, feels like we're getting kind of close to the bone.
Yes.
Little
Yes.
too close for comfort for
Yes.
me right now.
But that's currently, there are bonds that will be paid down over those
But
years.
that takes
and how they,
time.
yeah, but it's how they structure it too.
And perhaps while we're waiting to pay down some of that debt service, we can put a plan together that will provide potentially a better outcome if we decide to do it this way. So.
Correct.
Thank you.
Interest rates could also go up during that time frame,
Yes,
right?
they could.
Mr. President?
Trustee Bullwinkle? Or Bolthus? Sorry.
Yeah. And I started to answer. Yeah, my concern is that we're not allowing enough time to put this together properly to get the results that everybody up here on this board wants.
Yep.
You know, we got the time frame from this gentleman, I'm sorry I forgot your name, of what has to be done, and to somewhat, according to their reputation, guarantee a 80% chance of a positive vote from the electorate of Villa Park. And if we also have, like Trustee Tagley asked, possibly other ways to pay for the bonds off rather than just only through property taxes. And that's another avenue that needs to be explored. I just come back to the thing, my point basically is we're doing this a little too fast. There hasn't been a proper thought and airing out of what we're trying to do here, and to try to educate the public, especially the ones that live on the street that need to be repaired, to get an affirmative vote for the bond issue. So that's my concern.
Mr. President,
Trustee Ayala?
how much time have we had in 2004 and 2008 when those referendums didn't pass? Between the time that the vote was
2004,
approved.
we didn't do one. 2000.
The last two, when were they?
They were both one right after the other.
Do you,
One.
do you know how much time passed between the time the vote got approved and the referendum was approved, and then the vote on that referendum occurred? Do you recall? Anybody recall?
We started probably in, I want to say, we started September because the time frame for putting it on the ballot was much shorter. We needed the language to be done in December, so we actually started, we put it up in September, and then after it failed, nobody really wanted to jump into it, and then everybody said, well, let's try for the sales tax one. But that was both in 2009 when we were probably in our, the worst economy ever.
Yeah. So the time between the board saying, let's do this, and voting and saying, yes, let's do this and put it on the ballot, and the time the ballot actually, the vote occurred on the village residents voting on that referendum. Do you know the time frame that was in between?
I would say it was shorter because the time we did it, it was the shortened primary, correct? Was it the shortened primary for the governor's year? Because I recall going to meetings like a week before the referendum in heavy snow. And usually we don't have hugely heavy snow end of March, beginning of April, but I'm trying to remember.
All right, so we don't remember
We had a number of months. I think we had a little more time than we have allowing us right here. And I remember we were out, anybody who would listen to us, any place we get a group of people together, we were out there talking to them. And, educating them.
Not advocating. Recall, a big chunk will be if the board is on board, because if everybody's not on board, you'll have people actually talking probably against it or telling residents, no, well, I don't know if now's the right time. And if there are board members who work against it, against going for the road referendum, then that's going to be detrimental to it as well.
Well, I trust it. I think if it passed, I don't think anyone would really work against it in my mind anyway from the board. Maybe I'm wrong, but I trust that that's accurate. As far as finding alternate sources for revenue to pay down those bonds, assuming it got passed as a referendum for real estate tax, there's nothing that stops us later on from saying, you know what, let's do a car tag for $50 a car, and everyone's got to put $50 in every year, and there's nothing that stops us from raising revenue to pay those down faster just because we did it as a referendum against real estate.
No,
right?
Nothing prevents that.
I think so.
You get your strongest rating or your strongest credit is obviously the general obligation, the property tax. But you always have the option, as long as you have revenues available, to abate the levy. And what the rating agencies would say is, in order to protect that and the viability or what you've pledged with the property tax, you would not abate unless you had the money on hand. If you abate prior to having the money, it's called a naked abatement,
Right.
And that's what they seriously frown upon.
Right, so you
because
would
then you violate the trust of
Right,
the bond.
of the bonding company and the investors that buy into
who
it.
invested it.
So we would prefer to do is issue that bond and then possibly pay it down slightly quicker than originally planned,
You can
after it's already been issued.
You can put a call in place. We did an issue with a 7-year call. That's about the shortest you can do.
Okay.
The normal call in the market was 10. It's now about 8. An 8-year call. And investors don't penalize the issuers for that.
And that's my curiosity there is are the investors looking for the full 25 years? Obviously, when they bought into it, they want that. I don't want to ruin the credibility of the village in future referendums where you say, okay, we're doing another $22 million bond. Oh, yeah, that's the guy that paid us off early again. We don't want to get paid off early.
Well, this type of an issue would be institutional investors. And there's 2 categories, those who invest in bank-qualified bonds. Bank-qualified bonds are issuers who in a calendar year issue $10 million or less in bonds. Because this is over $10 million, you're looking at the non-bank qualified, and that's your big institutional buyers.
Mr. President?
Trustee Tagley?
I think the discussion here proves that this is a much deeper issue than it looks like at face value. There are so many different things that this board needs to talk about and understand, as well as the people of Villa Park. I've already heard additional taxes on the people and other kinds of things brought up. So it definitely is a concern in my mind. All the different ways this board or future boards may go after getting that money to pay back the bond. So I think that there's a lot of thought and planning that this board should consider that needs to go into this. So that's.
You did understand that pretty much
Mr. Brown.
anything he said would require taxes to pay for the roads,
Yeah,
correct?
that's my point.
Okay, but no.
Try to
I
put
mean,
it delicately.
If you're saying you're against taxes to pay for the roads, it's
Well,
going to be
no. I'm just
coming
saying
out
other
either way.
ways, like motor fuel taxes, we pay those anyway, right?
Yeah, but $500,000 a year isn't going to pay off a $22 million bond.
I understand. So it's like I said, instead of having it be new taxes or property taxes, what other vehicles are there?
Taxes.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Either way, it's going to be taxes. Just so you know, it'll be whether it's an old tax or a new tax. If you want to put out $22 million worth of bonds and they have to be paid back, they will be paid back through taxes, some form, whether it's a new form or an old form. You can put a different name on it. You can put it as a fee. You can put it as whatever it is. But the quantifying factor is that it's still going to be a tax of some source. If you want to call it a sticker, if you want to call it a water fund increase, whatever it is, it's still going to be a tax. So if you're never going to be comfortable with paying back $22 million with the tax now, you're not going to be comfortable paying $22 million with the tax later, whether you call it motor fuel, whether you call it sales, whether you call it, if you're going to be against the tax, you're going to be against the tax either way.
Mr. President.
Trustee Aiello.
I think this board can take credit outside of myself and Mr. Case. We weren't here when it happened. This board can take credit for the fact that we are in a financial position to be able to borrow this money at a time when rates are not going to be lower in the foreseeable future. There's desperate need in the village. We got people that come in with sinkholes in the street. We have people that come in with pieces of their street. We are all aware of multiple streets that desperately need attention, and they need attention immediately, or we're going to end up with more sinkholes. We can borrow the money now at a reasonably low, like extraordinarily low rate that may not exist in the future. Not to do it now seems to go contrary to what this board has done in the past as far as being responsible, in my mind, for its financial decision-making. You put this off, you can always ask again. If it doesn't go through, again, like I mentioned, if it's my wife, this village is our wife. We can ask again, or our husband. We can ask again. It's not going to stop us from asking again if they say no. It's a good idea right now because rates are so low. We're going to get extremely competitive rates on the work because there is not as much work as there used to be. It's not likely to get better in terms of the money that's going to need to go out for the construction and on the rate. If you've got the village made a great decision. The village homeowners made a great decision in 2008 by rejecting it because we're not paying it back at 8 1/4. We can do it now at 3 5/8. Call it 4. It's less than half of what was rejected. If that's not a selling point to the homeowners, I mean, if we can't sell that, we can't. You know what? Then we should have the roads deteriorate the way they've been deteriorating, and we deserve what we got if we can't get that going forward.
I think another question is how many more houses are we going to buy and tear down to make water retention ponds throughout town? We've done that twice now.
And I think that's an excellent decision. I mean, I don't think that's wrong to do. I think that's part of what we need to do.
We could fix those sewers that are on that street instead of creating those retention ponds in neighborhoods. Trustee Case?
I agree with Trustee Ayala 100%. Can't hurt to ask. We're going to wait another 2 years to do anything, and by that time, well, we'll be able to save on the street sweepers. You won't be able to go down the roads with those things anymore. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. It really is.
How long? Once this election is over, the next election isn't until the primary for the governor, correct? So you're talking a higher rate, so it would be March of next year.
President Cullerton?
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Want to ask the experts, in terms of the interest rates where we are now, do you see those interest rates skyrocketing between now and a year from now, 2014, if we decide with the residents that this is a good idea? I mean, where do you see, I know nobody has a crystal ball, but where do you see the
The
interest
Fed
rates
has
going?
announced that they're going to try to maintain, to keep rates down, but there's so many variables.
Right.
That's the problem. I mean, the variables, there are other factors outside of the Fed's control that can start to increase it. One of them, if you look at housing as a percentage of the GDP, you're going to, or GNP, you're going to, if houses start to rise, you're going to, will look like we're having a large inflationary shot. And once that, rates will start to climb on that.
Right.
And the housing has stabilized, and it is starting to turn the other way.
Yes.
So that is probably the biggest single concern from the Fed side, is that they won't be able to control that aspect of it, and it's too large a piece.
But the chances of it going back up to 8% in a year, I mean,
No.
I'm not a gambler,
No,
but
not 8%.
play one on TV. Maybe,
Not
so.
8%. It's just, in December, in November, we actually hit 60-year lows.
November.
So that was the lowest on record that they've kept the records. And then we spiked, we went up, about 40 basis points, 45 basis points. Now it's crept back down on the markets. It's calmed down a little bit. There was a lot of the fiscal cliff. And the fiscal cliff can set our market off just like anything else. And we were reacting to, well, what if we do go over this, and what happens, and how will that affect us? And institutional buyers started to demand a higher price on the bonds. So it did go up, and there were some issuers, and we did a number of issues in December, probably the highest number of issues we've done in December in years, because people were pushing to get it done now rather than take the risk. And then as we got towards the latter part of the month and it deteriorated, then they were like, wait a minute, we were just a month ago, we were looking at this, and we said the market is going the other way on you. And so now it is stabilized, it's come back, and it's a very good market for issuers.
Mr. President?
Now,
sorry.
Yeah. That said, and with the timelines that we've talked about, goes back to, I think, in all due respect, Trustee Aiello, I think what we've done in the past without properly planning, that's been a huge disservice. We go out, we scramble, we try to get this done. We've done it twice. And both times we've gotten enough grade on that too. I think, I do think we need to do ourselves a favor and everybody a favor, and let's really look at how we can do this right so we can succeed for Villa Park. So.
Mr. Mr. President.
A lot to think about.
When the rates start going up, in the past, it's my recollection from a class back when I had not gray hair, don't they tend to tick up 4 or 5 times in about 12-month period?
Well, it's when the Fed meets, the Fed just will say, okay, we're going up, and it's a quarter to a half. And we're not in that yet.
Understood.
We're not in that. But what happens is the market, the interest rates that the investors are looking for, the rates that they'll buy the bonds at. For example, in December, they were up 40, 45 basis points in a matter of, from I think it started on the 6th, and by about the 20th, we were up that fast. And that's what was happening in our market. Again, a lot of it was driven by the fiscal cliff. And also there was end of the year that plays into there because some of the institutional buyers start to go away. They close their books so they can just be done for the holidays. But at the same time, the real driving force was the fiscal cliff issue, which is now we're in a negotiating session. So what happens there? If that starts up again, rates will start to climb.
And in my mind, my crystal ball says that there's no real great risk right now. So I don't anticipate rates going up 3 points, 2 points.
No.
Within the next 12 months or by March of next year. Having said that, it's on camera, so I hope I'm not wrong.
Right.
Especially if we lose this, especially if it gets passed and we lose this. Okay, nothing more. That's all I have.
Mr. President, can I ask one?
Trustee Tagley.
So if we go with this, you lock us in at 4.6%, is that right?
Yeah. It's done. Well, 4.6, you were what,
Yeah,
3.6?
4.6.
Yeah, 4.6, no problem.
Too many numbers for me, I'm an idiot.
All right, I'm going to close this out. Let's do a consensus to move this. What is it? Move it to the formal, and then tonight would be the first, and then next Monday would be the second. Correct?
I believe it's the final this evening.
Is that the way?
Listed on the agenda.
First and final.
Yep.
On the right version. Okay, so you can do it tonight.
All right. Well, then let's do a consensus to move this to the formal.
Okay, Trustee Bolfus?
No.
Trustee Taglia?
No.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
No.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
I would be a yes, but the motion will not move to the formal. There will be no road referendum. Item 8, consider ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the requirements of bidders for construction projects. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is recommended to adopt purchasing procedures to provide for additional requirements of bidders for construction projects, to have active apprenticeship and training programs approved and registered with the United States Department of Labor, and to have bidders show 3 similar projects they constructed within the last 5 years. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Make sure you state your name for the record, please. And John,
Lost our
please
sign-in sheet.
speak up a little bit louder. Oh, we
Okay.
don't have a sign-in sheet. How's that?
Got cut from the budget. John Squeal, North Lincoln Avenue, Villa Park. On number 8, there was a comment in the local paper directed towards this, thank you, that stated there would be language requiring construction companies to be unionized in order to bid on work in the village, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm not sure what direction you're going with this, but I wanted to clarify that. As the responsible bidder ordinance actually states, the word union does not appear in any responsible bidder ordinance. The ordinance simply attempts to create a level playing field for all contractors, union and non-union alike, so that the lowest bids reflect managerial expertise rather than the willingness to subvert the laws of the state. Like the prevailing wage law, which was enacted in 1941 in Illinois, the ordinance is neutral with respect to the union issue. It simply further defines the phrase responsible bidder as it relates to the term lowest responsible bidder that is referred in the Municipal Code of Illinois and been incorporated into the majority of pro-concurrent regulations around the state. Public might not have been aware of that. I just wanted to clarify that as you may move forward with this. And I have seen both sides of the fence. I have friends on both sides of the fence, and This may help put local craftsmen and women to work in the area. It may not always be the case, but I'd be interested in seeing where you go with this, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Good evening. Bob Pirelli, 25-year resident of Villa Park, registered voter also. I am favorable in adopting this ordinance also, and there's a number of reasons. Not only talking about employing skilled and highest trained craftsmen in the area, and we do have high unemployment here, and I can tell you point blank, I know that there's hundreds of members of various organizations of craftsmen here in Villa Park that have been unemployed for a number of times. That can give an opportunity to. Also, there's problems that we have and issues that we have with day labor in here, with contractors utilizing subcontractors or day labor, even though it may be required under prevailing wage. It happens all the time, and it's driving up costs all over the place. Cost of your village doing their homework, getting certified payroll, utilizing time for that we're chasing down. And it's happening all the time. And you're not getting the best bang for your buck either, due to the fact that you're not getting somebody who was skilled, who was trained, who was in that. It is not a union provision. Many people are signatory to Department of Labor standards. So I can assure you that that's not it. We're looking for, one, favorable towards trying to put people back to work, area people back to work, and two, getting the highest quality. There is no additional cost. By making somebody follow the law, it does not cost anybody, and you're more apt to have people that are registered in these programs, that are local, that do follow the law, and are less apt to, plain and simple, be cheating. So, hope you consider the adoption of this thing. I do believe it's important, and I can assure you it will come up again if it isn't. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the public?
Good evening. Cliff Duple, 60 East Oak Street, Villa Park. Reading this, it is recommended to adopt a purchasing procedure to provide for additional requirements of bidders for construction projects. And that's the one part that I don't understand, construction projects. Does that mean if we have a leaky roof and we need to hire a roofing company, that the only roofing company that is going to be able to bid on it is going to be what the description from the United States Department of Labor says what an apprenticeship is? So when I went into there, it said apprenticeship is a combination of on-the-job training and related classroom instruction in which workers learn the practical and theoretical aspects of highly skilled occupation. Apprenticeship programs are sponsored by joint employer and labor groups, individual employers, so it doesn't have to be union, and or employer associations. But it also goes on to state, prospective employers work with the Office of Apprenticeship or state apprenticeship agency, field representatives to develop a set of apprenticeship training standards. So any small company is going to have to become involved with this agency to have an apprenticeship standard set up, which includes on-the-job training, related classroom instruction, and curriculum and apprenticeship program operating procedures. So in order for a small company to be able to go and bid on, which doesn't say what is termed construction project, okay, is going to have to follow these rules and getting up on a training program, okay, and the apprenticeship program, when small companies don't have people continuously retiring and new people coming in. So if we're going to adopt this, I strongly disagree with the verbiage as it says right here. We need to describe what is a construction project, because like I just said at the beginning, is that you got a roof leak. Does that mean who are you going to hire? You're limiting yourself to strictly a union company. Okay? That is going to take all of your project, the costs of your projects, and skyrocket them instead of being able to hire a local business owner. And so, for that reason, I believe that this needs to be looked at, and it needs to be defined better. You know, if the end result is for large projects, fine. You know, you want to, you know, to where, like the gentleman just said, to where you have to go through and do all of your prevailing wage reports and all of your insurance reports and all of,
Well,
you know.
you still have to do that even if you're a roofer for the village.
Okay, no, that, okay, well then,
Don't you, when you, as the pest control,
uh-huh.
don't you have to give reported salary as part of prevailing wage?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Certified
Because
payroll?
there's no union.
That's.
They're to compete, I mean, to.
That's not a union.
Well,
Well,
but you still
you-
have to, wouldn't he, even as a pest inspector, still have to file under prevailing wage?
Yeah, 'cause it's not in public construction.
No, it's
a
not
service.
construction, I'm sorry.
He's doing a service.
Service.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So what are you going to prevail wage against?
Right, it's not construction, I'm sorry, I completely.
Right. So,
Pest control
but
is
what it
different.
is that you're eliminating the small guy. And that's what, and it's not even defined of where this ordinance wants to go. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
Can I make a recomment?
Sure.
The point that he's making about not having to and eliminating, we have many, many small contractors that are participant in many programs. And there's also individual contractors that I work with that are in standalone, signed with the Department of Labor. The standards that are set on the training are set through the United States Department of Labor. They've decided what they feel is the appropriate program for training. Now, whether it's a union or a non-union contractor, they have to have that classes or that curriculum approved. So, in this case, when he's talking about a roofer, he has to pay prevailing wage irregardless of whether he is not or is a skilled trained employer. It also, as I told you, it alleviates the problems we're having with independent contractors, with these day labor services that people are now utilizing them in, and you're not getting, in a lot of cases, the best qualified people where you, in fact, are, by law, requiring them to pay prevailing wage. So it's not an additional cost, and it's not a negative thing on behalf. There are many associations that they belong to that give them that opportunity to train. So I disagree with what he was talking about, and as far as where he was going with pest control, yeah, it's not. It's a service. It's not listed.
That's my fault.
There's a
I
whole
apologize.
curriculum in DuPage County that's listed on all the registered under prevailing wage. So.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia?
there was a Senate bill that was 2643, made it to the House, and it hasn't been called for a vote. I just wonder, Mr. Cullerton, do you know, is that bill going to be brought to a vote in the House this year or this legislative year?
At this point, I do not know. We've had 2 days in Springfield. I would imagine.
Come on, Tom.
Here, it's all Springfield salt right here. It's, I imagine, as well as that, on top of multiple other issues, will be brought. But
It's got to be rewritten and resubmitted. It didn't get through due to time constraints, pension stuff, and other things. So it has to be resubmitted to come up. From best knowledge I have, yes, that will come back on the table.
Okay, so if the state does pass this, we'll have, is that true as a non-home rule municipality? We'll have no option.
Right. And there's the Village of North Lake just passed it a week ago. The capital development requires it. The compliance under Illinois procurement codes requires it. It's something that's time tested, and it is something that I find that is good for you. So that will probably take place, but in the meantime, municipality, school boards, districts, library boards, a lot of people have, in fact, not only considered it, but adopted it, quite a few.
any other questions or comments? I think it's good. I think it gives us the best opportunity to get the best people here. The day labor thing, I see all the time, standing in front of Home Depot, waiting to get picked up and taken out to go work on a job site. And realistically, the contractors we use are under our ordinance of paying prevailing wage, but I can guarantee you they're not paying prevailing wage when they're grabbing day labor. I think this is just another protection for us as a village and a protection, and it'll improve our standards. But again, I'll leave it. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President?
Trustee Tagliani?
Is this going to appear on a first reading on our next agenda?
If it's passed through here, it'll be first on our next agenda, final on the agenda after that, correct? Hold on, let me get my. Right. I'm still a little flustered on going committee of the whole then agenda, so I'm always backwards as far as.
Not on this agenda.
Right.
So I would just be a motion to put it on the agenda.
Be a motion to put it on Monday's agenda.
Mr. President.
Trustee Aiello?
I really don't have a problem with this as long as there's some kind of limit. Over a certain number, I need a skilled contractor. Below a certain limit, I don't mind not having a perfectly skilled contractor. I don't. So whether that number is somewhere where I want it or where someone else wants it, I don't know it, that it's got to be that a particular number that I would say. So what I'd like to do is amend this, propose that we just amend this to put a number on it, that above that number, it's got to be when I say skilled, I guess I shouldn't say it as skilled. I should say it as educated.
Properly trained.
Well, with prevailing wage, it doesn't matter the size at all, correct? No, Manager Keenan, correct?
Well, yeah, there is a $20,000 limit for, are you thinking of that to go out for bid? Is that what you're thinking of?
No, out to bid, I understand. I mean, for the requirement that there be an apprentice training program for the bidder.
I think he's thinking if you have
And a certain number.
if you have to do a pipe fix.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building the street, I don't want
Day laborers.
anybody that's not an apprentice, gone through an apprentice program to be doing my street and reconstructing the streets, the sewer mains and the water mains, et cetera. At the same time, if I've got a roof repair, I want to be able to grab the local guy on a quick basis that I've got experience with and I trust, regardless of whether he's gone through an apprentice program on a smaller project. What that number is, where I would consider it to be a smaller project or a larger project, I'm not sure what that number would be. I understand Chicago Public Schools has a number of 50,000, then above 50,000, you have to be in an apprentice program. Below that number.
That's 25.
Is it 25? I don't know that I want to go that low, but I wouldn't have a problem with a number. That number in my mind, I'm not sure where it is. So I would suggest that we put this back in to.
Can we move it forward and have a number
Yeah,
for
sure.
you next week?
Sure. I can live with that.
All right.
Mr. President?
Trustee Boltis?
One of my concerns with this is, like Mr. Dupo mentioned, what we would be doing, though, is lowering the number of eligible bidders for projects in the village. And I don't think that would be to the advantage of the village to not, even if somebody, they have to pay prevailing wage, if they want to take a smaller profit margin for the boss, that's their problem, as long as they pay prevailing wage. We have people on our staff, we hire engineering companies, consultants who monitor all their work that they do, who monitor the paperwork and that they're paying the proper wages for the jobs that they're doing. So we have people that watch that already. So, I just worry about the little guy out there who's trying to make a living too. He's not going to be able to bid on this. If his people haven't gone through this approved apprentices program, well, let's just not mix words. If they're not unionized, they're not going to get the job.
Correct.
Well, okay, I heard. So, but okay, it's maybe not true. That's my impression. Okay, and I'm entitled to that impression. So, And I just like to have the little guy get a shot at some of these bids, so that he can be a bigger guy someday. So that's my problem with this. And the other thing is, you know, we belong to a couple organizations, you know, Page Mayors and Managers, Illinois Municipal League, and they don't approve of this requirement either. So
Page Mayors and Managers has never taken our crime-free housing down to Springfield.
I understand that. I understand that, but you know, I just don't want to. You know, fewer eligible bidders, and that's what concerns me. So.
Thank you, Trustee Bolthus. Anyone else from the board?
Just something I want to get out there.
Trustee Taglia?
I've served a couple of apprenticeships in my day. All right. One was they're both actually non-union. One was Department of Labor recognized. I have a certificate from the United States Department of Labor. Also, I have a couple other apprenticeships that were not through the United States Department of Labor, but I feel were just as good, if not the same, as the one that's recognized by the United States Department of Labor. So in that case, the other two apprenticeships that I had served don't qualify for this. Is that right?
You have to ask the attorney.
Right, if it's not recognized, it would not be. But we're talking construction. I don't know what those are for, but.
Sure.
Were those construction?
Say yes.
No, they weren't.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments?
We don't have a motion to put it on yet.
I don't need a motion to put it on. I need a consensus to move it to the formal because it's committee of the whole. I just wanted to clarify with any more questions or comments. Any more questions or comments from the board? Consensus to move this to the formal?
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
No.
President Colleton?
Yes, and that will move to the formal agenda. All right, item 9, consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, establishing a registration fee for a solicitor certificate of registration. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The amount of people applying for a solicitor's license in Villa Park has more than doubled in 2012 from 2011. Surrounding municipalities require that each person applying for a license pay a fee to process their application. Currently, the Village of Villa Park has no fee to compensate for employee time and village resources to process these applications. Staff recommends that the village board and President trustees approve an ordinance establishing a solicitor license fee.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? Before I open it up from the board, Manager Keener, how many applications have we had this year for solicitors?
It's escalated over 100, Your Honor, and what transpires is they come in and fill out an application with my executive assistant, and which is then goes to the police department for a background check, and time is used over there. Then it comes back to the executive assistant, and for my signature, and then the applicant comes back in to either be approved or not approved, so it's very time consuming.
So we're talking your assistant, police time and effort,
Yes.
plus back to your assistant as well, plus your time and effort as well.
Yes.
Plus background check?
Plus a background, the cost of a background check, which nobody's paying for. Okay, very good. Any questions or comments from the board on this? Seems pretty reasonable to ask.
Mr. President.
Convinced. Trustee Aiello?
It seems like, I think this came up in December. I wasn't misguided. I didn't move to ask for this to be approved, and I wish I would have. I apologize to the board for not having done that. And I think we do need this. I mean, we've got expenses on that the village is eating right now with no apparent,
with no way to recoup the cost.
Well, and not that we should recoup a cost for every single thing we do, but it's got to come from somewhere, and it can come from the general fund. We don't have to have a specific thing to recoup the loss, because it comes from the general fund now to cover the cost. But this is a kind of a license that allows someone to make money in town, and they come to us to get that license because they want to make money in our town. You know what? I'll make money in the town, cover our expenses. I think that's a fair trade-off.
And I can say truthfully, the spike in door-to-door occurred because of, obviously, electric aggregation not passing, which left us as an open community for anybody to sell any resident a lower electrical rate. Since the village did not aggregate together, any resident could opt into any number of multiple programs throughout the town. So the moment our referendum didn't pass, 5, 6 different energy companies were out knocking on doors, looking for new sales and new business for lower electrical cost, which hopefully will get rectified at this upcoming election when we successfully pass electrical aggregation. Any other questions or concerns? Consensus?
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
President Colleton?
Yes. 10, consider a resolution regarding zoning restrictions on cannabis dispensaries and related facilities. Manager Keener.
HB 0030 is under consideration within the state legislature of Illinois. If municipal marijuana is legalized in the state of Illinois, the village of Villa Park will have to enact measures to ensure the location of dispensaries is controlled. This resolution will allow the Planning and Zoning Commission to regulate which areas of the village the dispensaries are allowed to operate. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any questions or comments from the public? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Wow, I didn't realize.
I wasn't sure. Well, Al, you've never spoken at a meeting. You take pictures, you set up our wonderful cable feed. I thought maybe.
That's all I wanted.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I just want to make a point. No, thank you, no.
Wait a minute, let me.
I just want to make a point. I looked that up, that House B0030, and just in case anybody else does, it's House B0001. It got changed.
Okay.
With the new House.
Right, this was the old, right before lame duck session ended. It was
Yes.
HB 0030, correct?
That's correct. Right.
So the new bill is 0001.
Yes.
All right.
I looked it up today, that's why I want to make that point.
Doing your research.
Thank you.
And realistically, last week, we were going to have a special meeting of the board last Monday because there was buzz that myself and Manager Keener heard from Springfield that the legislators were going to pass medical marijuana in the lame duck session. It would have been before this board meeting. It would have been signed, which meant if they passed it on Monday of last week, it would have been signed into law by the governor on Wednesday, which would have meant that a licensed dealer could have gone and gotten their license down at the state building and been up running and selling by Friday here in Villa Park if they had essentially a transferable license. So Manager Keener and I chatted, this was a week ago, right? About the need for there to be something that stopped this from rushing in if by chance it passed in the lame duck session. It did not pass in the lame duck session, which is why we put the meeting off, and we had heard back that Springfield had said it was not going to pass, it was not even going to be called, so we put the meeting off, but we wanted to get it on the books because realistically, it is a House bill right now. We need to at least know what's going to come out of the state before it's brought to the village board for anybody to sell once it, and from my understanding is, at least on the House side, I don't know how it never got brought to the Senate, but on the House side, they were right at 1 or 2 votes missing. This time there may not be. So we figured this would be a layer of protection for us to at least, much like what we did with pawn shops, we decided where they could be in town. But we didn't do that until it was, they had popped up where a lot of people and residents had said, hey, wait a second, we aren't sure whether we wanted them there or not. So this just adds a layer of protection for us to essentially give us a little bit more opportunity for any of these to go up. So it's not right across the street from a church or the schools or anything like that. Any questions? Now that I took way too long to explain what Manager Keener and I were thinking 2 weeks ago.
Mr. President?
Trustee Bolfus?
In the wording for the resolution, do we eliminate the HB 0030 under consideration, take that wording out of there? Is that important that that's, shouldn't be in there, or because that HB 0030 is no longer an issue? So I don't have the copy of the resolution in front of me.
According to the, if you look on, where are we at? Which one here? No, that's a solicitation. If you look at page 2, second to last line, Manager Keener just pointed out, the notice of such hearing shall be given as required by law within 120 days after the effect of the proposed law, which would have been HB 0030 or any similar law.
Okay.
So I don't think it'll affect this in any way because we threw in similar law in there.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
President Cullerton,
Trustee Bullwinkle?
on the state level, where do you see this really going? What's the vibe?
Well, it's a good vibe. No,
can only imagine. He said it. President Cullerton said it.
At this point, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any bill brought. There's probably only been about 50 shell bills brought forward in the Senate. I know it is already proposed. Representative Lou Lang has proposed it in the House. The thought is that he probably did have the votes in lame duck session, but there wasn't the guarantee that somebody wouldn't have flipped at the last second. So rather than bring it up, and what you see a lot in Springfield is rather than people take the risk and see if a bill fails, they'd rather not have the bill fail. So they'll pull it. As opposed to letting, sort of like what we have done here many times, rather than seeing if something will pass or fail, we'll pull it. Springfield will do the same thing. They aren't willing to take the risk. So that's why it got pulled from lame duck, because it was too close. There were only 1 or 2 votes away. But I will say this, when I talked with Representative Nybo last year about whether medical marijuana would be called or not, he had said that in all of his public forums and in his legislative working groups, there was nobody who was giving him pushback on voting yes for it. I don't know if that put him as a yes or no vote, but he was finding the response within the district wasn't the level of hatred for medical marijuana that he thought. I don't know if it'll be called, it obviously won't be called in the Senate if it's going to be fought out in the House. They'll fight it out in the House. If it makes it out of the House, then it'll be brought to the Senate. I don't see anyone in the Senate. Nobody's ever brought the bill in the Senate, so I don't see it being brought to the Senate first. So the battle will be in the House.
Which could take a while.
Which means it'll probably, obviously, everything's got to be done realistically and goal-wise has to be done by May 31st, which is why we probably need to put something in place. Because with us, it'll take this meeting, next meeting, and a second. So we wouldn't have anything in place till the first meeting in February. And I don't see, it wouldn't go that fast because the House isn't back in session until January 30th. Now that it's on the regular docket, it has to go through committee hearings and then go back for a second, then go back for a third. Then if it passes the third, it has to go to the Senate. And then from the Senate, it'll go to a committee. So it'll get read on the Senate floor, then go to a committee in the Senate. If the Senate wants to change any of it, they'll send it back. So it could go back and forth. But this right here will at least give us some protections throughout. Any other questions? All right, consensus?
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Yes, we will move this forward. Item 11, consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, establishing the authority of the Liquor Control Commissioner pursuant to the Illinois Liquor Control Act. Manager Keener.
Thank you. Village of Villa Park currently has a liquor commission that consists of the village president and 2 members. The proposal establishes a local liquor control commissioner to administer liquor licenses issued by the village in accordance with the Liquor Control Act. This ordinance would place the powers, functions, and duties with respect to licenses solely with the village president. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any questions or comments from the public?
This is only for disciplinary actions.
Yeah, I thought this was only for disciplinary.
You have
actions.
the sole
I still
authority.
want,
True.
I still want this to go through the board for licenses.
Licenses aren't going to change. The authority
Because
for
here
the,
it says licenses.
well, disciplinary actions, licenses, suspensions, revocations, or
Respect to
fines.
disciplinary.
Yeah, it's really just
Can
disciplinary.
we make sure that, all right.
I'll look at it, but I wrote it, so I'm pretty sure that's all.
Well, and the only reason I brought it forward was as a recommendation from Kathy going, you having a commission, you and the chief and the manager are the ones who catch the bars and dispense that. So to have a commission, the chief is the one who does all the stings. The manager's the one, and the chief are the ones who inform me when it happens. And the state of Illinois can come in on their own and do it at any time. I just want to make sure this doesn't say that the village president controls just giving out licenses.
No, the number of licenses is set by the village board.
Okay.
The village president, though, still has the same authority to approve as liquor commissioner the issuance of a license if a license is available.
Which we have already controlled when I was a councilman, when I was city council, with Doc Hensley and Trustee Vargas, that anytime there's a vacant license,
We remove
we
it.
immediately remove it.
Yes.
We handled that back in 2006. Who was around? You were around. 2006, something like that. And I know we did that. So that there are no open liquor licenses per village statute when a liquor license goes away. Okay. Now that I've clarified that. Any questions or comments
Clear
from
as
the
mud.
board?
Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia?
So essentially what this does is eliminates the village president's ability to appoint 2 additional liquor control commissioners, which is up to the discretion of the village
The
president.
village president can appoint anybody on the liquor commission.
Or not.
Or not. The village president can appoint anybody to the liquor commission, and then it's up to, and then realistically, the village president works with the manager and the police chief
So-
on actions.
As far as the board's concerned, the appointment of liquor commissioners by the liquor commissioner, the board has no say or control over.
No.
So currently.
So all this does is get rid of 2 extra commissioners. And worried about, like, 2 weeks ago, we had a commission meeting finding 4 businesses that got hit in a sting, and scheduling meetings where we could have just done the police, the president, and the business
So,
owner.
just to clarify the situation, currently the village president, at his discretion, can appoint up to 2 additional liquor control commissioners,
Correct.
which would sit with the village president as the liquor control commissioner, as what, 2 other votes?
Correct. Only on disciplinary matters.
Only on
Only
disciplinary.
on disciplinary matters.
This kind of just streamlines that process so the village president can more quickly establish hearings.
So if you had 2 rogue liquor commissioners that you appointed and said, no, we don't care if he commits violations.
Well, here's the deal. If you had 2 rogue liquor commissioners, the president could also
remove them. So that's
Because it's all
really
at the
not an
discretion.
issue.
It's really all at the liquor commissioners, all at the discretion of the president anyway. There's no board input for liquor commissioners. The liquor commission is a totally separate entity.
Is that
correct?
Correct. That's the way it's written. That one small area of discipline is being removed so that the hearings can be held before the mayor in kind of a more expedited manner, instead of trying to get a commission together.
You guys are good with that?
Well, thank you, Your Honor.
You guys.
This proposal, I believe, what it does is streamlines our ability to react to a sting operation or somebody selling to an underage individual, because right now we have to check with Senator-elect Cullerton and then 2 other members and try to work through the scheduling along with the scheduling of a court reporter and our attorneys and our staff. So if we change This proposal will just be working through the village president's schedule and mandating that the business become available at that time, and hold the hearing with the court reporter and the police. So it streamlines it, and we can react quicker rather than waiting to free up everyone's schedule.
Okay, so just to clarify for everyone, the village president may or may not appoint 2 additional liquor control commissioners, true? If you decide not to make any appointments, there's only 1 liquor control commissioner. Is that factual?
Yes.
So, okay, so just to make this clear,
It's crystal clear.
the village president by state statute is the liquor commissioner.
Right.
And we have it so that if the village president wants to appoint 2 additional commissioners, he can do that on his own right now without any board oversight. Is that right?
States.
Correct.
Okay.
Local ordinance.
So really, to me, it doesn't matter, really. Because if you didn't want 2 commissioners, you wouldn't make the appointments. And if you didn't want the 2 guys you had, you'd remove them.
True. Kathy Orr brought it up, said it would just streamline
Okay,
the
so
process and be done.
I got it.
Instead of
To
having
me,
it
it's-
hang,
it
instead of it
doesn't
hanging
matter.
open. And truthfully, I'm not president in May, so realistically,
Mr. President?
yes.
Our ordinance reads, the local liquor control commission is created, which shall be composed of 3 members. That's what our ordinance, so it says there shall be, okay? In the perfect world. Okay. Now, was there a state law that changed the way we have it set up now, that it has to be the other way?
No, Kathy Orr brought it up to
Yeah.
me as she had said, you know what, it doesn't make sense to have a liquor commission when you can work with the police
Mhm.
and the mayor can work with the police and the village manager and just essentially
Yeah.
give out the penalties. Because that's up to the president, and right now, it's up to the president of the liquor commission.
Well, let me tell you what concerns me about this change, okay? Right now, you have 3 members on the commission board, okay? With this change, the power of issuing liquor license and disciplinary fines would be solely up to the liquor commissioner, who would be the president of the board, right?
Wrong. It's
Disciplinary
solely
actions
disciplinary. The mayor currently has sole authority to issue licenses.
He has a sole authority, but then with the change, he would also have the sole disciplinary function.
Correct.
Okay? You know, what concerns me about that, nothing against you, Tom, but in the future, 10, 15 years down the line, somebody's a liquor commissioner, and that maybe doesn't have the same integrity that you have, and it opens up a possibility of some corruption, that the liquor,
Yeah.
Jim?
Well, I may want to stop you. What'll happen is there'll be an appeal. The liquor license holder has the right to appeal to the state commission after the local commission.
The liquor license holder does.
Right.
Well, I'm not worried about the liquor license holder. I'm worried about the man who's the liquor commissioner. Okay? By letting an infraction on selling to underage minors slide. Okay? Not instituting a fine or just a slight slap on the wrist. Now, I don't think that would be a good thing for the village. Obviously, none of us do. And it wouldn't be a good thing for the license holders, because they're kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place with, do I pacify this guy that's the commissioner, or what do I do? What if he comes around and asks me for a campaign donations, down the line, even though that's not legal, but what if he did? What do I do, And
File a complaint with the election board?
and the other thing that concerns me is I don't understand why the liquor commissioner would want to take this responsibility solely on himself. Why not have 3 other people there with you in the room who confer on what the penalty should be for the violation of the state statute and the local law? So, I'm just concerned about that. The possibility, protecting yourself as a commissioner, as the sole decider of what the penalties should be for a violation.
What your job is the elected president.
True, but still, if we can let you have two other people advise you and
That's why you have the attorneys and the police chief and the
yeah,
village manager.
you know, but
So if I guess if they're all corruptible as well as the
no,
president.
well, they can tell you whatever they want.
Right.
But, you know, right or wrong, but still, it's the liquor commissioner's decision.
Doesn't matter
So
to
it
me.
falls on you, you know, it falls on the commission.
I should have had Kathy bring it up then.
Maybe just one other point. One other concern is if you have other members of the commission, if those two members don't agree with the village president, they then would control the disciplinary action that would be applied to that situation.
Sure,
So-
maybe the president's opinion should be, oh, we're just gonna fine him $50. And they think, oh, wait a minute, this is his third offense, he should be fined $1,000.
Or it could be the reverse.
It could be the
They make
reverse.
50 and stuff.
You know?
It-
So,
it's-
and I don't know, you know, myself, if I was the president, I wouldn't want to take that sole responsibility on me, on myself. Just another point.
Any other questions or comments? Consensus?
Trustee Ayello?
No.
Trustee Bolfus?
No.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
No.
President Colleton?
Doesn't matter either way. It doesn't move to the floor.
Well, then vote.
Consider an ordinance amending chapter 25 of the Villa Park Municipal Code, water rates. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The village receives water from the city of Chicago through the DuPage Water Commission. In response to a water rate increase from the city of Chicago, the DuPage Water Commission increased water rates by 59 cents per 1,000 gallons, effective January 1st, 2013. Village staff proposes to pass on this rate increase to its water customers. The proposed water rate increase of 66 cents per 1,000 gallons would result in a water rate of $7.63 per 1,000 gallons. The proposed increase is the amount needed to cover the cost of the DuPage Water Commission rate, City Chicago rate increase, and water usage that produces no revenue, such as municipal uses, hydrants, flushes, leakage, theft, and uncollectible accounts. For an average household, the rate increase would result in a cost increase of $47.95 per year. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the board?
Other than this is frustrating.
Manager Keener, we have, and maybe Shannon can answer this, about 5 years ago, we fixed all the ABC streets, and we attached that to water rates, correct? The bond obligation, was that correct, Denise? All right, that's a you question. The bonds to.
That was an IEPA loan, low-interest loan.
Okay, did we attach that to the water rates?
Yes, we had to amortize the cost of paying off that loan.
How long before that goes away?
Another year and a half.
So when that loan goes away, how much right now is on our water rates that's paying off those streets on the
Well,
north?
it's about $500,000 a year payment.
Can you give me any type of ballpark what that costs on the water rate per household?
Well, it's.
Because it was the whole village paying for that area, correct?
Right,
Okay. But that's going away in a year and a half?
right.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know if it was anywhere near this cost.
No.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Consensus?
I'm sorry.
Trustee
President Colleton.
Bullwinkle?
Sorry, President Colleton. Looks like the DuPage Water Commission passed an ordinance in November about this rate increase that will go through December 31st, 2015. What happens after that? Can we put a stake in the ground and say no more?
After that, it'll be very interesting because the county board chairman and DuPage mayors and managers do not want the 0.5% retail sales tax that is covering the costs of water throughout DuPage County to be continued. DuPage Mayors and Managers has said they will not take up the cause. The Water Commission is neutral on the sales tax going away. County Board Chairman Cronin would like to see that sales tax, that countywide sales tax go away. So I would imagine come 2016 when that 0.5% sales tax that is countywide, that is helping pay for everybody's water, goes away, you will see a 0.5% decrease on goods bought and sold here in DuPage County, but you will probably see something else go on to the water rate. Even though the end of, and I don't think Chicago will stop increasing their water rates either. DuPage County buys their water from the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago, obviously a year and a half ago, increased its rates. They said over the next 3 years, 4 years, they would be increasing over 75% the cost of water. We have to pay, the Water Commission has to pay the water, so they are paying that, obviously. But once that sales tax goes away, you may see another increase in 2016. You're going to see another increase next year once the city of Chicago bumps it up again. It will not be as large because the initial increase was the largest increase from the city of Chicago. That initial 30%, I believe, or 28% was the initial largest one. The rest are going to be 15%. But they will get passed on to the DuPage Water Commission. The DuPage Water Commission will pass them on to local municipalities and so on. And then in 2016, when the tax sunsets, unless somebody can get DuPage Mayors and Managers to take it up or the chairman to take up that he doesn't want it to expire, that'll expire and the rates will go up again.
Maybe we need to rethink some things, maybe do this. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we have time.
Just wanted to tell you the straight shot on it.
We have time to think about some
and
things.
that's gonna hit.
Maybe come up with some other solutions, because this is ridiculous.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Trustee Ayala?
is there any other source of water?
You would have to ask Vetus. Vetus, do we have any other sources of water?
We still have our existing deep wells that are on standby for emergency purposes only. So we would have to completely switch back over to the wells, but we would also have to get the water quality into compliance. I am not sure if the water in the deep wells would meet current water quality standards.
Okay, thanks.
Consensus?
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Colleton?
And the motion moves forward. Item 13, consider an ordinance to increase the number of Class A tavern liquor licenses. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Proprietor of Ultimate Lounge, Inc., located at 137 East North Avenue in Villa Park, would like to open a club-style lounge at this location. The owner has requested a Class A liquor license. Approval of this ordinance would increase the number of Class A liquor licenses from 1 to 2. The total number of liquor licenses allowed in the Village of Villa Park would increase from 49 to 50. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And I know the owner of the Ultimate Lounge is here. We also have the police chief here to answer any questions about the location. Anyone from the public like to speak on this matter? Or if the board would like to ask questions of the owner?
Yes, President Colleton?
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Hi. Tell us a little bit about the lounge. What are you envisioning? Is it still part of Ultimate Cigar? Or?
No, this is on the side. We're building the wall, so it's going to be separate.
Got it. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the lounge. Like what are you planning on doing with the lounge?
Just only beer, wine, and stuff.
Got it. Okay.
It's not like food or nothing involved with it.
Okay, beer, wine, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just curious if it was in the same location, so you answered my question there.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
President Colleton, I just have one.
Oh, You gotta give your name for the clerk.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Imad Musbah. That's my
Can
real
you spell
name.
that out?
IMAD MOSBAH last name. IMAD first, last MOSBAH.
Okay, can you also sign that on the paper there?
Sign what? Here? Say my name?
Yeah, on the form there.
There's
Yeah,
no
I
form.
should- Oh, someone took it?
Oh, I have a piece of paper.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, for goodness sake.
Is there a pen up there? Okay, I'll give it back.
Mr. President?
Trustee Bolfus? No,
Or just
actually, if you could leave it right
yeah,
up
if you
there.
could leave it
Okay.
there, actually.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yeah, the paperwork I have here says that it was formerly Casa del Vino.
Yes.
Okay. That, I believe, Mr. President, Casa del Vino currently has a liquor license, a B license.
Yes.
And now is that number of B licenses going to be decreased? I think he also has a K license. And, like we said before with Trustee Vargas and Hensley, when we increased one like this, we would decrease what
When
he
one-
had. Right,
When one goes away, it goes away.
right. But the go away isn't part of this motion.
I don't think it. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Francis Ostian. I'm Mr. Masbah's attorney. Trustee Bolfus, Casa del Vino is at 137 East North Avenue, but it's a different unit.
Okay.
So it's not the same unit as the unit that he's talking about.
So is Casa del Vino going away, or is that still there and operating?
No, that's still there and operating.
So
No,
we'll-
that'll still stay and operate.
So
There's going
that'll
to be a
still
build-out
be there?
store, like,
Oh, okay, okay.
the
So this is a
estate.
completely separate entity?
Right.
Okay. All right, that's where I was confused. I thought one was going away.
No.
Because it says in the wording here, formally, like he was changing.
No, but he did get the liquor licenses when he owned Casa del Vino next door.
And he's still going to have those?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But that'll be for that entity. This
I
will
got
be
it.
For separate.
The word formally.
I got you.
Okay.
Blame it on Kathy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame the other thing on Kathy as well.
Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia?
Just to clarify, the Class A license, that's just so that you can serve alcohol at your establishment? Is that the difference between the licenses?
Yes.
Sort of be like the license Maloney's has, or, like it's a tavern?
Yes.
Okay.
Consensus?
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
President Colleton?
And the motion will pass. That's a yes. Consider 14 item. Consider an ordinance authorizing the sale by public auction of personal property seized and fleet vehicles owned by the Village of Villa Park. You get to read them off. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a number of vehicles that we'd like to auction off as surplus property.
Thank you for opening another new business in town. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have the first one, we have a 1992 Harley Davidson. We have a 96 Saturn SL1. We have a 1997 Chevrolet K15 Blazer. We have a 1998 Chevrolet C3500 pickup. We have a 2000 Dodge Grand Caravan SE. We have a 2003 Ford Explorer. We have a 1999 Ford Ranger. We have a 2006 Ford Crown Victoria. We have a 2008 Ford Crown Victoria. And again, we'd like to auction those off as surplus property, Your Honor.
I just kidding. You didn't have to read them all.
Well, I enjoy that.
Any questions or comments from the public? Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President?
Trustee Bolfus?
Internet auction is what this is?
This will be through Obanoff?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
If everybody wants to buy them, that's where you go.
Especially the Harley Davidson.
That was a sign.
Is the Harley in good shape? Beautiful. Harley's in great shape. Go online, buy the Harley. Obenoff Auction. OBENAUF. As soon as it's approved through here, it'll go up for auction to there. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Manager Keener, sorry, President Cullerton.
Yes, Trustee Bullwinkle.
Manager Keener, the funds for, from the sale of these vehicles, does it go into our vehicle replacement fund?
Some will, yes, some will go back to either the DUI account or the Fed account, depending on where the vehicles came from.
All right, that's good. At least it'll be earmarked and not buried in that famous corporate fund that we talked about. So, okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Consensus?
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
President Colleton?
Motion will pass. Item 15, consider an ordinance granting conditional use for automobiles sales at 187 East North Avenue, M&L Imports. Petitioner, Manager Keener.
Thank you. Petitioner is requesting a continuation of a conditional use for automobile sales at 187 East North Avenue that was granted by ordinance 3587 on January 26, 2010. This is the former location of Playsets Outdoor Furniture just west of Strat's Restaurant. The property is zoned C3 Service Business District and automobile sales are a conditional use. The petitioner proposes no changes to how they have operated over the last 3 years. And Your Honor, we do have Director Brill present this evening if there are any questions.
I know we also have the petitioners as well.
Oh, yeah, Lord.
Any questions or comments from the public? I have a question. How's business been? Could always be better? Always could be better. Any issues or complaints going on over there?
We have no complaints recently. I know when it first
You have to
opened.
come to the,
Yeah.
please.
Gosh, Patrick.
I understand when this business first opened that there was some issues related to where the cars were being parked. That issue has been rectified, and there have been no complaints or notices issued probably over there for the last almost 2 years.
So at the beginning, there were a couple bumps, but now we're all smoothed out and everything's going well?
Yep.
Any questions or comments?
Well, President Colleton, I was just going to ask about that because I know
Trustee
back.
Bullwinkle?
Yes, back in March through June 2010, it was a little rough start, you know, but it's good to hear that there haven't been any other violations since then. So, good job. And thank you for complying with our ordinances. Thank you.
All right, consensus?
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Oops, sorry, did somebody else?
Yes. I always
Trustee
have something
Bolfus?
else. You originally had a 3-year conditional use, and just so the public knows, this is a 5-year, which goes in conjunction with the lease now. So, so it goes for 5 years, and then we'll review it again if it's still there. So, okay, thanks. That's it.
Sure.
No.
Consensus?
Trustee Ayello?
Yes, you got.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Colleton?
And that will move to the formal. Advance to bill listing, item A through H. Can I have any questions or comments from the public? Any questions or comments from the board? Consensus?
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Colleton?
And those will all move to the formal. And now we will go adjourn to the formal. Thank you. Yes, please. It's probably in here. I have the paperwork all over. I just don't have it. Is that the one with the writing at the top?
There's more. That was just practice. Now we have formal.
All right. Village President's Report. I have been asked to make, I'm going to make three comments. First, definitely help the Kiwanis Club. Second, there are petitions up for the chili cook-off through the Pride Commission. Please go to our website, fill them out. Trustee Davis would have mentioned it, but he is home sick, so he just texted me and said, please remind everyone about the chili cook-off. So I'm reminding everyone about the chili cook-off. Please go to the website. The Pride Commission is hosting it. It should be a very fun time. And then if, where is that at? No, you got that. You go ahead and do all that. And then I will tell you, I will keep everybody up to date. Springfield was very short-lived. It was Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday was a swearing in. A bunch of bills were put up, as Trustee Bullwinkle had asked earlier, how I think it'll go. Right now, Senate Bill number 1 is the pensions, and all the pensions throughout Illinois. The House has probably far more bills than the Senate already up, but I will make sure that I keep everyone up to speed and up to date on what is going on there, and bring back reports and answer questions for anyone as it moves along. And with that, we will go to item 2.
President Cullerton?
What?
Do you have an office in town?
I don't. My office it should be up and running within the next week, and we should be going. We just went to AT&T today to get phone service and everything else. And I will make sure that I pass that information. And I believe since it is actually state-related and office-related, it would not be considered campaign-related, so I will make sure that we put my future office on the website once it is up and running, and the phone number, which we should have in the next 2 days.
It's in Villa Park.
It will be in Villa Park.
I was waiting for that answer.
Yes, it
So
will
the
be in
answer is
Villa,
yes,
it
okay.
will be in Villa Park. So I'll still be around. Watching everything. And with that, I will go to public comments on agenda items. Is there anyone who would like to speak on an agenda item?
Pretty much cleared the room.
We've cleared the room, so item 3, consent agenda. A, minutes from village board meeting for December 17, 2012. B, minutes from village COW for December 17, 2012. C, approved bill listing dated January 14, 2012 in the amount of $825,813.59. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So, Mr. President?
Trustee Bolthus?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Mr. President.
Trustee Aiello?
Second.
Questions or comments from the board on the consent agenda? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bullfuss?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
The motion will carry. Item 4, first and final reading, an ordinance of Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, increasing the number of Class A restricted tavern liquor licenses. Can I have a motion on the first and final?
Mr. President,
Trustee Taglia?
I'll move for the first and final.
Can I have a second?
Mr. President.
Trustee Case?
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bullfuss?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
Motion passes. Item 5, first and final reading of an ordinance authorizing the sale by public auction of personal property seized and fleet vehicles owned by the Village of Villa Park. Harley, Saturn, Chevy, Dodge, Ford. Can I have a motion for the first and final? I'm sorry, I did not go into as much detail as you did, and I appreciate your diligence for doing so. Can I have a motion on the first and final?
Mr. President,
Trustee
I'll
Taglia.
move for the first and final.
Can I have a second, please?
President.
Trustee
Second.
Case. Real quick before we vote, any questions or comments from the board? Real quick before we vote on it, Manager Keener, can you please give the actual website where people, if they would like to bid on any vehicle seized by the village, could go? We might as well promote the site that we're actually selling these vehicles through. And I know some people know it, some people don't, but if we could realistically state it, that would be great.
It's the Obernoff online auction, and Your Honor, I don't have the actual web address with me this evening.
How do you spell that, Obernoff?
Obenauf, Obernoff Auctions. But if you Google just Obernoff, it will immediately take you to it. But please, you know, Villa Park's taking them. We'd love to have somebody from the village win them.
President Cullerton,
Trustee Bullwinkle?
I bet we can put that website address on our website.
Perfect.
How about that?
All right, any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
That will be, yes, those will go to auction. Item 6, first and final reading of an ordinance granting conditional use for automobile sales at 187 East North Avenue. M&L Imports petitioner. Can I have a motion on the first and final?
Mr.
President,
Trustee Aiello,
Move that to the first and final.
can I have a second?
Mr. President,
Trustee Bullwinkle,
I second motion.
questions or comments from the board? Roll call, please.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
And that is a first and final approval. Item 7 did not pass. On to the agenda. Item 8, resolution regarding zoning restrictions on cannabis dispensaries and related facilities. Can I have a motion on the resolution?
Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia,
Move for the resolution.
can I have a second?
Mr. President.
Trustee Aiello,
Second.
questions or comments from the board? Roll call, please.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Ayello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Cullerton?
And that motion passes. By the way, Trustee Davis just texted me. It's OBENAUFAUCTIONSONLINE.com.
Like I
Trustee
said,
Davis.
just
I'm
put that on the
very good.
village website.
All right, item 9, village clerk's report. Clerk Koronecki.
No report tonight.
Item 10, unfinished business. Item 11, new business. Item 12, village manager's report. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to keep it short through the hour. There will be a Boy Scout Troop 234 pancake breakfast and auction Saturday, January 26th from 7:30 to 11. And that is going to be at the Cavalry United Methodist Church at 136 East Highland Avenue. Again, Saturday, January 26th, 7:30 to 11 a.m. Pancake breakfast by the Boy Scout Troop 234. I just want to bring the board and the residents up to speed on our e-waste collections from September through December. We're going to receive a credit of $920.43. So that program is working very, very well. I think if you drive by home, there's always TVs or computers, fax machines. We even put up a couple of containers for defective Christmas lights. So doing an outstanding job. For the month of December, for the month of September, our recycling collection rose. Our yard waste dropped a little bit, the tonnage carried away. And so very good. Glad to see the numbers increasing. Metra has passed a new budget for their fiscal year. Their budget, just so everyone understands, is $713 million. Their budget calls for spending $146 million on infrastructure next year. Just a quick legislative update. Because of the lame duck session, not a lot of items were tackled, but still looking forward to the pension reform. Wireless 911 surcharges will be taken up again. Local government tax fund transfers. We need to save our money for the local governments, and no offense, Senator, keep it away from the state. We need our money. Prevailing wage requirements is going to come up again. Talked about medical marijuana, that's going to be addressed. Even satellite tax is going to be addressed again, and cable franchise fees. So lots of interesting topics going to be addressed in the next few months probably. So with that, Your Honor, I pass.
With that, village attorney?
No report.
Village trustee, trustee Bullwinkle.
Thank you. Have a few things tonight, make it quick. Manager Keener, looking for some updates, really quick. What's going on with North Park Mall and also Aldi? There's some things happening with Aldi as well, so we can talk about those two items on North Avenue.
Your Honor, I would like to turn it over to Director Yee.
Okay.
In regards to North Park Mall, Hilco Real Estate is the real estate consultant that's handling that foreclosure auction on behalf of the bank trustee. And the original auction date for a stalking horse bidder was January 11th. That was extended to January 18th. So how this works is there's at least been 3 bidders. There may be more, but 3 that have approached me. All 3 that have approached me are people who are known to me. Some of them I had actually referred to them, let them know that this property was available. And so they will submit best and final offers on the 18th. From that, they will submit not necessarily the highest priced offer, but the strongest offer. That becomes the stalking horse. Okay. So once the stalking horse bidder is established, then the other bidders now have the option to better their offer and beat the stalking horse. And then the stalking horse can come back and make a final bid and buy the property. So the stalking horse gets the final and best. So they are looking for an April close on the property is how that works. So everybody's done their due diligence and they are in the process of making their offers.
Could be pretty interesting. That's a hot piece of property there.
So these are all, because there are no national or regional tenants here, all the tenants that are in North Park Mall are local tenants. Mm-hmm. Some of them, it's their only location. Others, there's like the Villa Park Fruit Market. They have a couple of other stores. Hobo has, I think, 4 other locations, and some of the, I think the pet store has multiple locations. But the rest, the furniture store is it's their only location. They recently closed their other location that was up north, and so really everybody's looking. All of these bidders are long-term holders who are going to look to add value to the property, and it's a long-term play because the leases that are in place, the tenants that are in place, have long leases. A lot of them have very long leases, 20, 30 years out. So the time to add value, it's not going to happen overnight, but all of them are looking to do a new facade, and when they finalize the bid, those people will come in, the new owners will come in and be introduced to the board at that time.
I presume they're probably aware of plans that we hope to execute on North Avenue in terms of redevelopment.
They understand there's a TIF area. They are also looking possibly for some assistance once they establish a game plan of how to redevelop that space. And so, everybody has a different plan of what they might do, and it all depends on how the market is also.
This is going to be interesting to watch.
It's going to be a great thing. It's a big deal. I've spent a lot of time meeting with many of the prospective buyers, some of them multiple times.
Real quick, just to follow up on that, just to add on, do the outlots include North Park Mall, White Castle?
The White Castle and the bank, I believe that the bank is on a ground lease as well as the White Castle. There had also been, as you know, a restaurant, the Denny's, which has been demolished some time ago. And I think the new owners would also be looking at putting additional outlots.
So those outlots are part of the whole North Park.
They are part of
foreclosure. They aren't separate individual.
They are not separate.
By White Castle.
They are either leases or ground leases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Trustee Bullock.
No, it's okay. This is a big deal, so I think we need to
It's
talk about this.
350,000 square feet, and it is a big deal. I have walked with the fire inspector and the fire chief, the properties, trying to getting them to bring as much up to code before they sell the property. So they have the bank trustee has already cleaned up a lot of the issues that have been there. There was a lot of deferred maintenance at that shopping center, so we are trying to get them to take care of things before. It will require a lot of capital. Whoever buys it, that roof will require lots of money to fix flat top roofs that cover that span 350 square feet. It's a big number. So.
Well, they see the potential.
Right.
Yes.
There's a lot of potential, and all three bidders that are known to me are good local developers.
Very good. Very exciting. We'll watch that very closely. And then Aldi. What's going on at Aldi?
The Aldi is really just a sign facade, right?
Sign and facade.
Just a.
And facade. The building
Just
itself?
right at the opening.
Oh, great.
Right.
Okay.
And that's all.
Very good. Okay. Exciting. I saw some activity out there, so I thought I'd ask. Okay. Manager Keener?
Yes.
Can you just give an update really quick on, in regards to the CSOs, or how their collaboration with community development has been going, and just kind of what the status is there with their activity? And
Yes, actually I can. The CSOs and code enforcement are working very well together. In fact, on a regular basis, I believe they're going up to North Avenue at 325 and using the computer system there to take care of any issues. In fact, Director Grill, would you like to add anything?
Well, I've been working with Mike Lay to try to figure out how we can best utilize the talents of the CSOs and the code enforcement officers to increase productivity.
how many CSOs in code enforcer do we have total?
6.
6? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But I do know that we are losing at least one CSO fairly soon. And I'm going to need to work with the deputy chief to figure out if responsibilities or areas of responsibility will change.
Okay.
And how best to effectuate that.
So they're out there busy doing their thing, writing tickets, whatever it is that they're up to.
Correct.
'Cause I've had a number of residents mention that they've noticed some improvements here and there. It takes a lot of time. They're not perfect yet, if ever,
That's
but
true.
at least it seems like, based on some feedback I've received, that some good things are starting to happen. It just takes so much time to move that rock, but once you start moving it,
We just want to keep moving it in that direction.
Yeah. And of course, each experience or each situation is different. You have to, take it by a case basis sometimes, whatever the situation is. But it's good to have that visibility out there. So, okay.
Trustee Bullwinkle, we're also we just did a test for the code enforcement folks of having tablets in the field, which would improve their productivity by keeping them in the field so they would not have to make trips back to the office as nearly as they probably have in the past. So we're still testing that out, which they would be wireless throughout the village using probably a piece of our software to communicate with their server and their computer in their office to be able to do the tickets, enter data into our town, and to move forward that way. So be very efficient.
That'll be good. And also, I know they have their checklist and they're out there, they know where they're going, what they have to do at the moment, but if they drive by and they see a blatant violation, do they address it then too? If they see a car parked on the lawn or lawn up to your hip or something like that, do they? Are they doing that more and more now?
I've asked them to try to be cognizant of their surroundings as they drive around, and if they do see something, to note it, not to say to themselves, "I'll get back to it later," to do it right then. But it's a culture change, and we are working on it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. As long as it's on the radar. So okay, thank you for that, Manager Keener. What's the status of the VFW in terms of the remodel and when all that's going to be done? And
that's a very good question.
All that good stuff.
Staff has been working diligently with the representatives of the VFW, and I believe it's not too long where it's going to be open, but possibly Chief Rakosnik, if you'd like to talk maybe a little bit about some meetings with Denny and Yeah. What I've done on a weekly basis, I've asked Chief Rakosnik to touch base with Denny to determine if Denny needs any assistance or if he needs any additional assistance from Public Works in the form of inspections or further documents or anything to smooth the bumps out in the road. So Chief Rakosnik's been meeting with Denny once a week, going through the building with him and offering suggestions.
It's funny you should ask. I stopped there today and talked to Denny around 3 o'clock. He hopes to have the VFW finished in about 4 weeks. But I meet with him once a week if I can catch him. I can't always catch him, but it's moving along really nice. It's a beautiful place. It looks really nice. The first floor is completed. They're down in the gun range now working on that, and that's taking some time. But it looks really good, and it's taking some time, but he's doing it right. If you drive by, look at the back, he's got a massive ventilation system back there. I don't know what he's doing in there, but it's massive. And he was showing it to me today, and it's like, holy crap, he's got all kinds of ventilation, return air and incoming air and outgoing air, and but he's doing a fantastic job. It's just taking some time.
I happened to stop by right before Thanksgiving, and it was amazing what had already been done up to that point. You know,
the whole first
Looked
floor
nice.
is done. It's really nice. He did a nice job. And,
okay.
it's unfortunate what happened, but
Pretty
it's
exciting.
It's looking really good.
Yeah.
It really is.
Sorry under the circumstances what brought us to this remodel, but I'm glad that
Something good came out of something bad.
And for people to know, you can rent out. The first floor is open. The
Yeah.
main floor is open. So if
It
you're looking
looks
for
nice.
a place to put a banquet, they're already open, correct?
Yeah,
Trustee Tagley?
that
Is
is
there a
correct.
better-
It looks really nice, and
It does.
they did a nice job. They really did. So,
very, very nice.
we'll keep you posted.
Yes, thank you. And then just one other thing in regards to, been hearing some rumors swirling in regards to the transit-oriented development, the TOD area, in terms of that development being a dead development. That is not true. In fact, Mamie Yee, I don't know if you want to address this or not, but you've been pretty good about providing the board with regular updates on what's happening with that development. And, you know, we know that the developer is doing his due diligence, and things like this take time. So
The developer, Rick Goldman, has ordered a market study. And the results of that market study are expected this week. They were supposed to have been done, completed last week, but with the holidays and so forth, the firm was delayed in completing the market study. Now, once the market study is obtained, then he will take that market study and begin working with potential financiers to make an evaluation of how many units and where and how they're all laid out. So it's a process, unlike, you know, even financing your home takes several months, but when you're looking for financing in the $40 or $50 million range, this takes time. So he has the market study, he'll revise his pro forma, and then he'll start to shop for financing. And as everybody knows, the financing that dried up during 2008, 2009, it hasn't come back. Banks are much more cautious in today's environment, so that is a lengthy process. And so the developer, is on track for moving this development forward, but it is a lengthy process. So we are perfectly on track, he's on track, and so we're very pleased. I talk to the developer on a weekly basis and get updates with them.
we appreciate the updates too.
Thank you.
So we can share this with people. Okay, thank you. And finally, just from the Cable Commission, I am the board liaison to the Cable Commission. Just want to make a quick announcement that that we in the Cable Commission are aware of issues with the broadcasts recently on the PEG channel in Villa Park. That's the Channel 6 Comcast and AT&T Channel 99. The issues have been related to the broadcast quality as a whole, and they are being addressed. As recently as today, we had 2 issues related to the Village Board rebroadcast that were corrected a few hours ago. And other than some other issues and sound quality issues, those were also corrected. I've actually asked a few members of the Cable Commission to set up an email address that will be monitored daily to invite feedback from the channel viewers, the residents, so that any issues in the future can be isolated and corrected more rapidly. So when that email address is established, I will convey that to the residents so you can let us know whenever you see something, if the site goes down or the audio goes bad or it's fuzzy or whatever the case may be, you can let us know about that. And you can always contact me at trusteebullwinkle@invillapark.com, and I can convey the information to our cable commissioners. And we're just, really working hard to bring you more programming, more local programming, and we have an incredible group of volunteers on that commission that put in a ton of time and energy to do what we do here every day. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al Stash. Trustee Ayala?
Nothing today, thank you.
Trustee Bolthus?
Nothing tonight.
Trustee Taglia?
A quick announcement on behalf of the Senior Concerns Commission. They're hosting a CPA David Kane. He's going to have a tax workshop for seniors at the Community Rec Building on January 30th at 11 a.m. They'll talk about property taxes, preparing income taxes, and any tax-related issues that seniors might have. 11 a.m., January 30th at the Community Rec Building. Refreshments will follow. And just to make mention of the TOD area project, I was going through downtown Wheaton the other day, and on Front Street, they're building luxury apartments next to their train station, and they have several buildings like this around that area. They're very nice looking. It really seems to improve the downtown area, so hopefully banks recognize that Villa Park's also a viable area to build one of these projects because it looks really nice. So that's the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Case?
Yes. Well, I've been asked the question all the time why I don't say anything. Well, I'm going to explain it to you right now.
Is that changing tonight?
Yes, it is. I don't do business. Well, I don't like to do business. That way I like to come in here. If I have to talk to the manager, I'll talk to him during the week. I'll ask questions. I'll get her earlier. That's the way I like to work. So that's why I don't say too much. But now I'm going to say something. Patrick, thank you for the situation you helped me out with the business owner. Appreciate that. Second, CSOs. I would like a monthly update. It doesn't have to be spread around. I would like to know where they are giving out tickets and so on. Third, if Mr. Deputy Chief Lay could give us an update next Monday on crime-free housing, if possible.
There's updates on that on our weekly reports. You see those, right?
Yeah, but I'm not on a computer all day. Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't live behind a computer. Fourth, I'd like to know when the dirt is going to disappear on North Avenue. It's an eyesore. And lately, I've been getting a lot of input on people calling the village and not getting a response. Okay, I went through that before. I don't want to see anybody go through that. Why I'm getting the calls, I have no idea. But something's got to be done if they're not called back within a 48-hour time frame. Okay? I don't know how we could do business that way, but it's getting very aggravating to people. So I wish something could be addressed about that. And I think I said enough for tonight.
Can we expect much more from you, Trustee?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Like they said, you look up the Giants now.
All right. With that, we will go to public comments on non-agenda items. Anybody? I think we scared everybody away. Holy cow. I have one last thing. Happy New Year, everybody. We haven't been here since before Christmas, so I hope everybody had a great Christmas. I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year, and we're starting to get cold. We knew it couldn't be summer forever, but we're starting to get cold, so check on your neighbors, check on the seniors in your community, and make sure their heat is working, and help them out if they need a hand. That ice storm a couple days ago could have been very dangerous for a lot of people in this community, so make sure you're checking out and wash your hands and Wash your kids' hands when they get home from school. Holy cow. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President.
Trustee Taglia?
I'll move to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Mr. President.
Trustee Aiello?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Any objections? Roll call vote.
Trustee Aiello?
Yes.
Trustee Bolfus?
Yeah.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Case?
Yes.
Trustee Bullwinkle?
Yes.
President Collington?
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. See you next week, Villa Park. I'll be around tomorrow.